Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, nobody likes to talk about end of life planning because let's face it, it's uncomfortable. We don't want to think about someone we love passing away. But something is happening this month that I think really begs this conversation to happen. And just in the past few moments in visiting with the two of you, I am enlightened, feeling better about, being a Gen Xer and having baby boomer parents and having lost grandparents and seeing some chaotic moments in life. So, want to get right to it. We have I want to say it right. Jeff Paparone.
Pepperone.
Paparone. I'm hungry and I want pepperoni pizza. Jeff Paparone from City of Hope in
Incidentally,
Phoenix.
that's my nickname.
I had a feeling, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're going to understand why when we chat here in just a moment. From City of Hope, Chaplain, 13 years there. We also have Jolene Green. She is the founder and CEO of Farewell Finder, and you are helping families plan ahead. So
Mhm.
thank you for being here. We very much appreciate this. This is a service that unfortunately we all can use, something we all need at one point or another. So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you because you just told me something really astonishing. 13 years at City of Hope, and you have seen firsthand the need for this app.
Yeah. Yeah. So at City of Hope, if you look at when people enter, if you will, the last chapter of their life, end of life, I would say right now, according to the state of Arizona, about 30%, about a third of the people actually work towards completing end of life care documentation, advanced directives, power of attorney for health care, mental health power of attorney, things like that, living will. And that's not good
No.
because on my end, the doctors will give their prognosis in general, and they do a wonderful job, but that's a tough conversation. They'll step out of the room after a 15-minute prognosis conversation. Myself, Chaplain Scott, we walk into the room and we deal with the emotions with people. And usually the number one question is, we haven't planned anything. What's our next step, Jeff? What do we do? Where do we go?
And when they're there, they don't necessarily think that they're going to get a terminal prognosis.
Right.
And
Well,
you're there
nobody
for
wants to think they're going to die.
no.
Yeah.
We don't. I mean,
We
we
all
don't
live forever.
right? That's so true. And Jolene, let's talk about this because when you reached out to me a few months ago and you said, I've come up with this, I thought, oh boy, ooh, that's kind of a hard thing to talk about on TV.
Mhm.
But you know what? We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking that, I know other people are thinking that. But when we start talking about things and we normalize things, it gets easier.
Mhm.
That's
And
it.
I think, the reason a platform that makes it easier doesn't exist is exactly that, because it's difficult to talk about. Nobody wants to. I mean, when we look at industries, babies, weddings, we do it all online, right?
Yeah.
This is just a late market to adopt, I think, because it's the one people don't want to address the most. And so Jeff and I are partnering to launch farewellfinder.com within City of Hope, but we're here specifically on this week for National Healthcare Decision Day,
Which is
uh,
on the 16th, by
which
the
is on the
way.
Thursday.
16th. And I'll let Jeff kind of explain a little bit about what that is, what the meaning is, and how Farewell is working with him and how we're working with the Arizona population to improve this experience for everyone.
When we talk about experience, again, 13 years at City of Hope here in Phoenix, again, you know how much this is needed.
And 6 years prior to that, I was a chaplain with Hospice of Arizona. And so I've heard the conversation. I've been asked several times, why should we talk about this? Why should we plan early? And just real quick, it's a gift. If you want to give a gift to your family members, plan ahead. We plan ahead for vacations. We plan ahead for when, the next car we're going to drive. We plan ahead for the next home we're going to buy.
You'll have life insurance.
That's it. Why don't we plan ahead
Yeah.
for dying? Because, was it Benjamin Franklin said we're guaranteed two things. What?
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
I just said that to my kids last
Yeah.
night.
Right? But
My
that's
daughter said, Mom, don't talk about death.
right, but that's true. And so National Healthcare Decisions Day, it is a day, but we kind of celebrate it, recognize it, if you will, at City of Hope, basically for the entire week. Now, 2008, there was an attorney who set out, I don't know if it was because he saw people who hadn't planned. People would come to him and say, hey, we need to plan, and this is why we need to, because we have a loved one at the end of life. Anyway, 2008, this day kicked off where basically it's to raise awareness about the importance of doing your end of life care planning. Again, with no fear, nothing like that. Let's look at it. It's going to happen. But what does that mean practically? most of the times people think of just advance directives. Again, as I said before, mental health power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and living will. But as Jolene will explain, it's, how do I say it politely? That might be 10%
Mhm.
of what is really needed, if you will, for that gift for your family.
And this is what, and we'll talk more about this too, with this service, as you will, which is free or you can donate. Um, this is kind of what is left out of the will. This
Yes.
covers all the other incidental things that might cause the fighting between siblings afterwards and all the crummy stuff, right?
Yes. All it's the family's goodbye guide that they need in the immediate aftermath
Yeah.
of you passing away before a will is ever read.
This is personal for you.
Yeah, this idea first came to me when my father passed away,
I'm sorry.
and I recognized that that it didn't need to be that hard, and that everything within that process was so much harder than it needed to be. And at that time I had the idea, but wasn't really in the right place in my life to take off and, build my own company. But as the years went by, and more people around me, I experienced loss, and I recognized this is everybody's problem. This wasn't just me in grief. This is
Over and over and over again.
over and over
right?
and over and over
Yeah.
again. And so I set on a mission and spoke with about 200 people across hospice, funeral homes, and anyone who had experienced death to understand what their needs were. Why didn't it happen? When is it happening? What do you need?
Who's in the
How-
conversation?
Who's in the
That's it.
conversation? When is the pain the worst? What's the hurdle? And that conversation hurdle is one. Absolutely nobody wanted to leave the emotional burden on their families, but they needed something that wasn't a stack of PDFs. And so with Farewell Finder, we guide them easily to complete their family's guide and share it digitally, and they have complete control of access. When they update, it updates their children or whoever they choose their loved ones' views. At any time, they can remove them or share either of those plans.
You don't have to go to a lawyer. You just
You
log
don't
into the app.
and I'm not taking
Yeah.
any passwords or sensitive information. If you have a password protector where you keep everything, there's an opportunity where you can put a note, hey, for when you need this, this is where it is. So we're building the map. Who are the first people you contact? Where do I need to look for these 5 essential paper documents?
What
But
do I need to write down?
yes, just the map and the celebration of life, how you want to be honored, what you want done with your body.
I got to tell you, I just signed up for this like in the few minutes before we went live here. I'm not kidding you, you guys. It took me 90 seconds. Now, I haven't gone through the decisions like whether I would want a funeral or a celebration of life. Again, it sounds grim, but I'm thinking, ooh, I could plan my last
Yeah.
party, right?
Yes.
Well,
Which
but that's
seems
it.
silly, but
That's the key. Do you want a party or do you want a funeral dirge? And there's some people, they want that traditional funeral
Yep.
because maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe, right?
Mhm.
You get to make the decision, though. I get to make the decision. And I can actually speak, how do I say it, with 100% confidence. I just completed my farewell package. And it didn't take probably maybe over 4 days, give or take, maybe a total hour and a half.
okay.
And that's if you're thinking and really putting
yeah.
the information
Yes.
in there, which you can do as much or as little as you'd like. But even just completing the wishes flow and giving your family at least the decisions of what your physical care, so that they don't have to make those decisions for you.
Yeah.
Well, for
Which-
goodness sakes, if you're single
Right.
and you have a dog,
Yes.
what do you do with the dog?
We have care plans for that.
Care
too.
plans for that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, you were not sitting here when I was chatting with Jeff. And one of the things you said, Jeff, was Jolene reached out to you after an op-ed that you wrote.
Mhm.
And you've been astonished by the difference that this is making with the people that you're forward facing. You visit with people, hug
Every day.
people, meet people where they're at in times of crisis. But this is it. This is a solution for you.
Every day. I don't know of any other one-stop shop solution. There are some out there where you can, it's like a booklet you can write in, and there is, I think, a segment of the population that would want to write everything down, and some who might be IT challenged, and so they may not. But I would say this, again, I've gone through it. I am IT challenged. That's not my strength. My strength is one-on-one, one-on-two with patients. But for me to go on the website, to put in the username, the password, create that, if you can punch buttons and read, it is extremely simplistic.
Well, and I have a 100% Google accessibility score and meet all WAG requirements, which most sites do not.
Hmm.
But because people are crying, maybe,
Mhm.
or they're facing their own grief, I built this platform under the assumption that our users will be in a state where they need accessible design instead of something that's an overwhelming list.
Yeah. And it's all overwhelming. But, for someone who might be in their car driving and listening to this or cleaning house and listening, in their ear pods, where do you begin this conversation? What happens there? How do you, break the ice on this?
May I say something real quick? You'd mentioned the word overwhelming.
Yeah.
Would you choose to be overwhelmed at the time of death, where you have to answer all these questions and you don't know any of the answers, or would you prefer to be overwhelmed a month before, a year before, 10 years before?
Well,
Your
it's not as
mind- when your-
overwhelming.
when
You
your
can deal with the
mind's so-
stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom died 2 years ago,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and she had, thank you, she had everything planned from her obituary to the funeral mass, everything.
Wow. That's
But I
rare.
bet she,
Very
I bet
rare.
she passed away with a lot less stress. And
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you
Oh,
did
yeah.
too.
I want to tell you
experienced
something
that.
for my dad, but I'd say especially for my siblings, myself, my brother, my sister. I'm not going to say it was easy.
No.
But it was easier because we could actually grieve as opposed to do our child. We got to do this. We got to call. We got to.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And it's cultural, but we can change that.
But
Yes, ma'am.
so your question was when, right? And it's if you have a will or thinking about it or children, it's the time to start. I mean, the other big thing that pushed me to farewell was my dear coworker, Jennifer Carson. She's allowed me to use her name. Her husband tragically passed away in an accident. Not expected, not at the right age, with 2 kids.
Oh.
And I was with her through that process. And that was the first like outside of my own experience.
Yes.
I didn't have kids I had to take care of. It wasn't my husband. Put it
But you
in
saw firsthand what she was going through.
Yes. And so it's any time that you have somebody you love that you can share this with is the time to share it. You don't have to have all of the things put together. And the great thing about it being digital is do it, share it now. You feel like updating it in 2 years because suddenly you want a backyard barbecue and to become a tree pod. Like I want to be a tree pod. Like a dispute in our family right now. My grandma's ashes, she passed away here in Arizona, sitting on a shelf. I want to make a memorial diamond out of her. People think that's weird, but we never asked her because it wasn't a thing then. And that's it, to avoid the conflict.
Yes. No kidding.
The conflict kills families. And you can share with as many people as you want, right?
I was going to ask that. So sharing, right? But when you do have that conversation,
Oh yeah, just
who should be there
who should be there?
and
Well,
who shouldn't be there?
I'm not that sensitive, so I just called my parents and said, "Hey, I need you to complete your end of life plan for me. You're getting older."
That's fair.
And they were like, "Well, I have time." And I said, "Please, will you just do it for me?"
We're not promised tomorrow.
I wasn't very sensitive about it.
Yeah.
But I bet he has a more sensitive way.
Oh, I don't know.
Rip
I
the
can be
Band-Aid.
forceful from time to time, but I would say, who do you trust?
Mm.
And who do you trust may not always be the person you would think. It may not be a spouse. And not that you don't trust them, but okay, for example, you have somebody who is, let's say, actively dying. They've not had the conversation. That spouse might be the worst person to ask because they're going to say, do everything you can do to keep my husband alive, do everything. When 2 days earlier, we heard the patient say, I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't want CPR. I don't want life support. I don't want a respirator. So would you trust the wife? Yeah, because she's the wife. But would she, in her grieving process, have the best outlook for?
And we don't know that until
Yes,
we go
ma'am.
through it.
Yeah.
That's
We
it.
do not know.
Yeah. These are the conversations I've had for 13 years. Well, 19 years.
Well, and this is something you could create your plan and not share it with anyone until you feel ready
Yeah.
and have it there, and then you could choose to go have that conversation.
Oh, that's true.
But I
brilliant.
think the biggest thing is we all know we're gonna die.
Yes.
Why?
fact.
Why is it so difficult to?
Because it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. It's gonna hurt. But yeah, I guess it hurts to think about. But like anything in life that's challenging, which we
Mhm.
do every day, people are the most adaptable, wonderful things. at dealing with challenges.
Yeah.
And this is just an
One of those
inevitable
things.
one.
Well, I want to talk about the money aspect, Jolene, because one of the things that really stood out to me was a price difference. I mean, if you plan ahead, and I mean, it might sound weird. Oh gosh, she's talking about money and dying. Yeah,
It
I am, because it can
matters.
be really, really expensive when you talk about the celebration of life or a traditional funeral. If you don't make these phone calls now and you don't do your homework, so to speak,
Grief
well, you could
spending.
get ripped off.
Yeah, well, and grief spending.
Yeah,
If you don't have a plan, people happen, it's known, they will overspend in grief to
yeah.
feel like they did the right thing and they're guessing.
Yeah, they
Free.
don't say if you really love your loved one, you'll get
But
these extra flights. They don't say that, but there's an intimation that, boy, I really love my, and I need, if I spend more, I'm doing more,
Yeah.
or I love
She
them
loved
more.
roses, or he,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Well, and that's why I have the first in the nation funeral home directory.
And that's right there on the platform.
That's right there on the platform, only for Arizona at this time, that I have taken all the pricing from homes that offer pricing transparency.
Because it can be really hard to find
Yes, they're
with some of
buried
these
in
funeral homes.
footers, they're on 3 clicks of links, and I, converted that to something that is easy for consumers to read, and they can click compare, compare, compare. They can look at 3 homes together, and with our resource center, I could have a call guide list.
Okay.
Essentially, like, how do you not get ripped off?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's just a reality, unfortunately, of this topic.
And I've used that funeral home finder 3 times in the last month.
Okay.
And it's cut my work down from 30 minutes to 5.
My goodness. Well, again, the ease of use, free, or you can donate. It really
Donate would be
is.
helpful.
It's very advantageous for anyone who just wants to ease that stress for family members and, quite honestly, themselves. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here, Jolene and Jeff. We really appreciate it. Again, it's that tough end of life planning conversation, but it's one that can be so helpful. And we're going to continue to share more information on abc15.com.